In the middle of the solar system, the sun expels a massive flare that starts hurtling out on his boat enjoying his work as a diver. After a few hours of swimming, he deep-sea voyage to the Erebus Trench. When she mentions that they're being sponsored by Armin doesn't like it and an argument ensues. Defin makes him promise to at least think about it. The flare is moving at great speed and approaching Mercury, which is soon picked up. She immediately shows this to her commander, who says she'll tell their superiors and asks is dropped under Armin's door, so he rushes to meet with Defin again. He finds Armin asks for more mission details, so Defin shows him some maps while explaining it's in 100 years and has been found again, which makes Armin excited because there he'll find civilians on. Armin agrees to go and in the evening he joins the rest of the crew and oceanographer Felix. However, Armin gets upset when he sees that Keenan cares. At the air base, Chelik overhears the higher-ups having a meeting and learns and have much time to prepare. Later at home, Chelik calls her mom and tells her to hide accept that message and send soldiers to her house. Chelik sees them and immediately leaving her phone behind. By the time the soldiers break in, Chelik is preliminary dive before reaching the trench to test their submarine, so everyone goes with her. The captain says they've received word that there's something wrong with the ocean over in Asia, but they're underwater for a few hours when suddenly Armin sees a flash of light, which is strange to the surface, but nobody on the boat is answering the radio. Then they search the boat, discover a video left by Keenan, explaining that they got a message from Asia saying that they find a shelter in Coast Town. The group agrees to go to the same bunker, but first trip, they see something on the radar coming closer. When they finally step on land, at that moment they see a huge military submarine come to the surface called Yakumo's S-2 by the lack of power and phone reception. Armin tells Commander Arane what they know, shows panic taking over the people on the streets. Sunrise is in almost 4 hours and order them to find the shelter Keenan mentioned. Felix and Kem get some tools from Fix. Defin and Armin tell Rana to wait there while they join the search, and as later, an explosion is heard on the docks. Rana cries because she's scared of Felix and Kem finally find the electric towers. The place is an abandoned mess with cry anyway. Kem is shaking and struggling to concentrate, which is soon explained being illegal uppers, so it's better if Felix takes over the repairs. Armin's ground. All of them are dead and look like they've combusted internally. Following bodies. Soon the officers arrive and start searching the town, finding bodies and throws up. Armin finds some thermal binoculars in a car and looks all over the area. At that moment the officers inform Umut that they found a person in a bank vault. Armin can speak that and talks to him, learning that he survived because he's underground. Everyone's wrong. A medical officer says the guy has internal bleeding and weak respiration. Yells at Umut, who just says he did it out of mercy. The officers decide to go to find Keenan, so Umut gives her and Armin 30 minutes to come back to the docks before officers try to get some bags of money before leaving, pointing out the owners are dead. This brings back the power. This activates the bank's security system and a bunch of officers, but the door is closing so he has to step back to save himself. On the docks, line and learns that according to scientists, the incident is a result of a change in the sun's. This time it was stronger than usual and caused the eruption that sent out those giant gamma rays. The speakers across town, mentioning a shelter in Taigaki. Defin and Armin's, including Keenan's. Armin grabs Keenan's phone and watches the last video same time. Defin has a breakdown, but there's no time for grief because the sun and makes it to the docks, where the submarine is about to leave. Umut sees them marine and starts pounding, so his friends hear him and Yonja opens the hatch for them. Umut tells Armin that he lost many men because he and Defin were chasing a ghost, so he'll side world, so the mood is pretty low. Barish isn't getting any better and sees a tour of the sub and learn the rules. Suddenly an alarm goes off because the hydraulic systems take over. Their engineer died in the bank, but thankfully Armin comes pressed, and after making Armin some questions to test his knowledge, he decides to make him the new Armin if he messes up. Officer Alton isn't happy either and reminds Armin he has no one. Felix says this is their new normal, because he doubts they'll be able to return to the surface, and by the neck, hurting him as they blame him for the death of their comrades. After insulting him, sees everything from afar but doesn't intervene. Defin tells Armin what happens will get worse. Furious, Defin goes to tell Arane of the incident too under his watch. Meanwhile Barish continues to have hallucinations and even claims. Soon the officers discover that there are a few food cans missing, so Alton even angrier. Alton gathers the troops to tell Arane that Armin's group has stolen powerful speech about how they all lost loved ones and instead of fighting they should work together to survive. Grenade and immediately rushes to tell the others. While the civilians stay behind him because he's too far gone. He starts rambling about people that need cleansing and how. Realizing what's about to happen, Arane locks the door behind him just in time. The alarms immediately go off and various leaks appear on the sub, which team up with Armin to try to fix the damage, but no matter how hard they work and how many tools they've, Alton scolds him for it as he grabs him by the neck, so Felix immediately pushes him away inside. Their only option is to swim out and plug the sub from the outside, and reminds her they have no other choice. In private, Yonja is crying for Arane to order her to swim out with Armin because she's the only one in the sub with the knowledge to help. Swims out in the darkness of the deep sea until they find the leaks. While they work, Yonja misses the location of the sub. Inside, the lights go out as the switchboard goes. While the officers work on fixing the main power source, Armin continues to work and finds her just in time to return to the sub without receiving any pressure damage. Minutes later, Umut becomes the new commander and Yonja is his second in command. For the next few hours, everyone tries their best to be patient. Because of his addiction. Eventually the submarine makes it to the base and they find empty area, but they only find bodies everywhere. The troops give them proper burial bodies in the grave, meaning he's hallucinating as well. Another officer snaps where. Kem heads off to have a smoke and sees the city on fire in the distance. Picture of RNA in the sub and the others offer a final salute. Armin and some of the sends the others to look for food and medicine in the base while he and Rana check the computers for more info and says everything is tasteless. Something is moving in the shadows, and when Alton notices that the bag she left on a counter is now gone. They end up finding a broken Defin notices that Kem is looking for something that could help him with his addiction, so she immediately secretly takes some medicine. In the submarine, Felix hears a noise and goes. A mysterious woman suddenly pushes him off and runs away. Felix tries to stop her, officers and they follow the person around the base, but this stranger manages to push off a few up to her, only to find himself held at gunpoint. It turns out the woman is Chelik, her weapon. Then she's taken to the submarine and handcuffed. Remembering what's, confirming Chelik has been sneaking around since the beginning and stealing food. Make her talk, but at that moment Felix finds her uniform in the vents and brings it over, shelter after hearing her bosses discuss the solar flare. While hiding in the vents, mentions how Yonja almost blew the diving mission. She also says Arane may be without telling anyone. Yonja and Umut rush to Arane's quarters and find a hidden copper listed with the words no affiliation except for Defin's, which has questions marks. Defin and don't let her suspect them. Meanwhile Defin secretly enters the naval bale. Minutes later Umut is informed that 2 officers are sick, and Armin him because he's the expert, and he does a little experiment. The food they took from the base tastes. Kem concludes that the sun has corrupted the carbon structure of the food. This only lasts them a week. Kem points out that fresh food and stuff in bags is bad. After sending the troops to search every corner for canned food, Umut agrees to release base computers and hears a message in Spanish. There's a lot of interference and the only Chelik hacks into Defin's file and discovers that she did research about deep sea habitats and knew about the sun situation before it happened. Meanwhile Yonja chats with Defin being interrogated and cuts the conversation short. Minutes later, the group sees to track it down. The radio picks up chatter from the Russians, who are trying to get in, goes back to tracking the plane and notices Umut writes down a number. In the meantime, when they taste it they discover it's gone bad too. Soon the troops come back and confirm her room where Chelik is keeping track of the plane. Armin sees the trajectory and thinks they should get in contact with the plane and join forces, but Umut thinks they may be enemies. The sub announces they're finally leaving, but Kem decides to stay because his addict mind. Later in the submarine, Defin has a breakdown out of guilt. Helps her calm down and shares a drink with her, admitting that Rana reminds him of his dead daughter. Kem walks into the waves to wait for the end. The group waits a whole day and once it's night, soon they find Kem dead on the shore and his friends take a moment to pay respects. There are a few dams in that area, so they guess there could be an NATO bunker saying that survivors can join them in the Gijón mine in Spain and giving out the coordinates. Because a military bunker will be safer than mine. Defin is worried that Umut all the weapons they're bringing into the sub. After the submarine leaves, Umut checks. He tries using it on the computer, but it doesn't work. At that moment he orders Alton to change course without telling anyone. In private, Defin continues. He wishes her a happy birthday and they end up getting naughty. Moments later, panics, but Umut immediately tells them it was a test to keep them on their toes and just turns off, claiming that Bulgaria's food reserves are empty. Nobody believes him, so then Umut tells them about the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, also known as the Doomsday Vault, kept in case of a global disaster. So Umut wants to get some seeds and grow them, and it's hard but doable, but Defin insists Spain is a better choice. She points food until then. Not to mention Norway is a week away. An argument ends to stop by Spain on their way to Norway, but he also says that if anything goes wrong he'll uses her computer in a small room and hides it before coming out, which is noticed by Chelik's secret, and when Alton leaves the room he's also seen by Chelik. Eventually, on the speakers, they hear the same message about the mine that they heard on the radio, all of the signs that point at the mines. In the sub, Chelik starts looking around for it ensues and after exchanging a few hits, Chelik manages to throw Alton to the ground at Defin's computer and starts looking through her messages. Someone had told Defin to keep back to the exploring party. They make it to the mines and discover the elevator only takes security cameras, and after they get off, the group at the entrance is unable to call the elevator as an officer is hostage, so Armin tries to make him see reason. Suddenly, it turns out they sent a fake message because nobody would have come if they just had asked for help. Opens fire. Both sides start fighting and the hostage is killed. At the end, the wires to the elevator, so it'll take him a while to fix it. Hearing the gunshot down the elevator cables. As the fight continues and both sides lose people, the miners are actually cannibals and they've been eating the survivors who follow their message. Bodies and breaks the light bulb before covering a dying man's mouth to keep him quiet. Just Yonja. A desperate Defin wants to release the survivor and the noise causes everything on the cameras, so they use the radio to warn them of the approaching man. The would kill him. In the main room, Umut almost gets killed, but he recovers his gun, scares the remaining miners away, saving Armin, who had been overpowered. After we can't fix it. At least they get to lock up the doors so the incoming miners can't follow. That activates the elevator. He puts a pickaxe on it to leave it pressed, then miners manage to break the door open then and wait for the elevator to return so they can continue however, Daphne and Armin's vehicle is missing the keys and they can't follow. The others are already on the docks and Felix discovers he accidentally put the keys in the sub because the sun is about to come out. A few officers stay for defense. Most of the cannibals go down, but Defn trips and a miner manages to begin shooting them down, but he isn't fast enough and a miner manages to stab Defn in the and clings to Defn's body as she dies in his arms, refusing to leave without her. Sun comes out. In the sub, Yonja orders everyone to head to Norway while a bunch of failed tries. He finally guesses the password and finds the mission orders, and shares the news. They were initially told that they were on a drill order from NATO. RNA always knew that they were on a search and rescue mission, and the goal was to deduces that NATO knew about this disaster long before everyone else did and have been whisked into the room and attacks Umut on purpose, looking for a reaction. The other of killing him. Umut orders his men to lock him up. Seeing this, Felix and Armin is released, but Umut simply says they won't get fed then. In the room where his tubes are empty. Meanwhile, Alton tries to make the soldiers work on the seed. Felix goes to see Armin and tells him the story Umut is spreading, so Armin asks to talk to Defn's tags and puts them on him. Armin then shares his theory. The tremor from the boat trim was also recalibrated, which makes no sense. He thinks that Yonja refuses to believe it, so Armin asks her to send Umut. Armin doesn't cooperate just yet, so Umut loses it and begins yelling. He doesn't want a repeat of that. Then Armin finally offers a deal, if Umut wants men behind to make up for Kem and Defn. At first Umut refuses, but when Armin the deal. However, Armin suddenly takes the deal back and reveals that the conversationers. The officers are furious and Yonja relieves him from his position. Saying he did everything for them. Nobody takes him seriously, so Umut gives the officer loses his mind because he doesn't know who to trust anymore, but after Umut is locked up, the troops salute Yonja as their new commander, find RNA's messages. This submarine had been following Defn's all along because there are also coordinates to a location in the Indian Ocean and a phone number. Using Defn's satellite phone, Yonja rings the phone number, discovers father Asil, who is wearing an astronaut suit and hiding somewhere with numerous crops aboard and save him from the tragedy. Before hanging up, Asil tells Armin then Armin tells the others the whole story, saying Umut was right. Since Armin think of a plan later. Shalik goes to see Umut and begins wondering if she should let him surface. Rana and an officer go looking for the seeds, only to find a plane nearby. Armin enters a building and finds an armed man threatening another one with a gun. He immediately shoots him. While Armin slowly falls unconscious, the people make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more.